This question comes to us from M, and M writes this: Dear we, could you please explain the Apostle Paul's use of head coverings for women in 1 Corinthians? Thanks, M. M, great question. Let me answer this question by giving you an example. You and I have actually never met, but you can learn a lot about me by the different things that I'm actually wearing. For instance, on my left hand, I have a wedding ring, and you see this wedding ring right here, and that communicates to you that I'm a married man. I also have a Fitbit on my right wrist here that shows that I'm somewhat concerned about my health and exercise. I also wear a collar, which communicates to you that I'm in the vocation of pastor. I also have facial hair and glasses and all these other things that communicate to you who I am and a little bit about myself. Now, there are other examples we can think of as well. For instance, maybe a person wearing an orange bandana and a leather coat and an emblem of a Harley Davidson decal on their right shoulder would communicate to us that they are a biker, that they enjoy Harley Davidsons. Or maybe if we see a person that is decked out in rainbow colors, that could potentially communicate a little bit about their sexuality. Now, on another side, we could look at a person dressed in orange and blue, and maybe they have a big Bronco on the front of that shirt, which would communicate to us that they're Bronco fans, Denver Bronco fans, and that they enjoy football and sports. Now, I do realize that we're not supposed to judge a book by the cover, but yet the cover does describe and show a little bit of what the book is about. In other words, when we look at the first century of Corinth, there are things, signifiers, that were in that Roman culture that communicated things about people, just like we have in our present day and age. In other words, if we look at the context of a man and wife going out to eat at a banquet, if a man is sitting next to a woman and she does not have a head covering in that Roman society, that Roman culture, then it was communicated and perceived by others that that man and that woman sitting side by side with her not wearing the head covering, that she was his sexual companion for later that evening. There's also other signifiers in that time and that culture as well. Things such as this. A woman who had her hair actually sheared really short was considered an adulterer. What would happen at that time and age would be if a woman was caught in adultery, they would actually take her, remove her head covering, shave her glory of her hair off, and then stigmatize her as an adulterer. And that physical sight of her not having any hair would be communicating to the culture that she was an adulterer. Also men, surprisingly, men at that time, if they had longer hair, it was looked as if they were effeminate or kind of like a girly man, if anything else, if they had longer hair. So the point being is this: they are different signifiers. There were different signifiers in that day, just as we have today, that communicate things about the people. Now, whether we agree with that or not, that's just the way it was in that culture, and it is that way today. Sometimes it signifies something good or bad. So, to our point of the Apostle Paul, when he says to the individual, to the wife, to wear a head covering, he's essentially saying this: wear your wedding ring. Put your wedding ring on. If you're married, put the wedding ring on. If you are married, put the head covering on to communicate to others that you are not actually a prostitute, that you are actually bound to your husband, and so people don't get the wrong idea. So that's essentially what is going on in this text, that he is calling a wife who is married to put a head covering on to signify that she is indeed married as she actually is. So I hope this helps, and we'll catch you next time.